Hello Bookish friends, welcome to my January wrap-up part 2. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 9 works that I finished and one book that I DNF'd in the second half of January. Like I did in the previous wrap-ups, I will insert the clips that I've recorded very soon after I finish those works. Today is the 16th of January and yesterday evening, late at night, I decided to DNF the audiobook that I was listening, which was called Fırtına Takvimi by Jale, Sancak. In this book, we follow many different perspectives regarding the death of a little girl in the hospital. The town that they live in also face some racist activities by the state towards them. The reason that I decided to DNF this book was because it was called the newly termed postmodernist novel, and I really do not like such novels where it's so complicated and has so many views and different timelines that it is almost impossible to follow. I really didn't want to listen to something so complicated, even though the general plot is quite dramatic. So it was no use to waste any more time, and I DNF'd Fırtına Takvimi by Jale, Sancak. Today is the 20th of December and I finished 2 books back to back. The first book that I finished was called Küçük bir Ayrıntı, A Minor Detail by Adaina, Shibli. I read this book for my real life book club. This book takes place in 2 timelines. The first timeline is the summer of 1949, 1 year after the war between Israel and Palestine. In the desert conditions during a very hot day, soldiers capture and rape a young Palestinian woman and kill and bury her in the sand. And this event is told from the point of view of the soldiers' general. Many years later, a woman in Ramallah becomes fascinated to the point of obsession with this event in history, which she calls a minor detail, because that woman was killed on the same day 40 years before her own birthday. This book was very short but a very powerful book. I was especially inspired by the extraordinary writing style because the dramatic things were mixed with daily details so efficiently that this very violent crime against a woman is explained like a minor detail, which was very interesting to me and sometimes angered me. Second part of the book was also quite interesting, especially the lives of people in an oppressed country living like prisoners. Also made me think about the society and the world that we are living in. Although I was not a big fan of the ending, I thought this very short and powerful book deserves all the praises that it gets. Second book that I finished was the first book in the series, Sam Wyndham series by Abir, Mukherjee, titled A Rising Man. This book takes place in Calcutta in 1919. After being a very active soldier in World War I, Sam decides to escape to colonial India to escape from the tragedy that he suffered both during the war and in his personal life. He has an occupation there as a police detective. One day, a very significant person in the government is killed in front of a brothel. Sam and his fellow associate officers try to find the reason behind this very curious murder. I read this book with Nikki and Naomi, and it was a very interesting experience for all my friends, I think, because the first 60% of the book, we were more involved in how accurately and professionally the time period, colonial Indian environment, and the many voices in the societies living there were portrayed. I just loved every detail given about that time period. It did not felt like biased and gave the reasonings for all of the contradicting thoughts. Maybe because I was so much immersed in the time period, I felt fully invested in the mystery after 70%. I felt like mystery fell a bit at the background. Gave A Rising Man by Abir Mukherjee an 8 out of 10. Today is the 21st of December, and I finished the book that I was reading with Rose at Skelly dangling about the books, which was The Woman of Troy by Pat Barker. This book is the second book in the Woman of Troy series, the latest book up to date, but the next book will come out this August. The book starts with the fall of Troy. We follow the point of view of Briseis, like the first book, Pyrrhus, who's Achilles' son, also the great commander who helped to capture the Troy, and the priest Calchas, who has fallen out of favor with the king of Greeks, Agamemnon, because he cannot turn back the wind, which is preventing the victorious Greek soldiers to return back to their homes. And during this period of very anxious waiting, the women of Troy, who are prisoners in the Greek camp, do try to survive. And through Briseis' eyes, who is a great observer, like in the first book, we observe what is happening with Hecuba, widow of the king who has been killed by Pyrrhus, Cassandra, Hecuba's daughter, Andromache, who's the widow of Hector, who has been killed by Achilles in the first book, and Amina and Hele, who are also the members of the woman prisoner camp without any previous royal titles. But reading a book with Rose has been phenomenal so far, and this was no exception. The book also helped a lot in this matter because the characters were very complex, and also we had great discussions about their motives and factors that affect their decisions. It was really interesting to see the similarities between two very opposite characters, and how that made us feel the same towards characters on the completely opposite sides of the war. And I thought the writing style was very good, very close to excellent actually. And I appreciate how the environment and the geography that I'm of course familiar with has been described in detail. We could clearly visualize what was happening in the scenes. Pat Barker clearly had an agenda to tell a feminist retelling of the Trojan War, and how the women were regarded as worthless and not equal to men in every aspect of their lives. But it did not feel preachy for a book that I know the general plot of. I could not wait to find out what would happen to the characters that we have been following for 2 books. So I gave The Woman of Troy by Pat Barker a 9 out of 10. I cannot wait to read the next book in the series when it comes out. Today is the 23rd of January, and I finished one novella yesterday evening and one book today. The novella that I finished was a chess story by Stefan Zweig. In this novella, we follow an unnamed narrator who meets a champion of the chess game in an oceanic ship. His friend and the narrator decide to challenge the chess player, and when they are playing the chess game, a slightly older man disrupts them and says that they should not make this move. And when our narrator talks to that man, he discovers the very dark reason why that man is so obsessed with chess. I had read other novellas by Stefan Zweig, and to be honest, I thought he was a good writer, but never could understand the hype around him. But when I read this story, I thought this was an excellent story. First of all, it packs so many things in a limited amount of pages, which is, I think, a great indication of a very capable author. Story that Zweig constructs is very, very clever, but also has a very emotional and a powerful message. The things that the older man went through was described very, very vividly, most probably because of his own experiences. Overall, I was very, very pleased with what I read, and I gave Satranç, the chess game by Stefan Zweig, a 9 out of 10. And the audiobook that I finished today was Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. In this thriller, an 18-year-old boy has been accused of killing his girlfriend about 7 years ago, and his family, with the exception of his younger brother, never believes that he was guilty, and they try to prove his innocence by even being involved in a true crime documentary about their son. Matt, the younger brother, one day receives a call from an FBI agent saying that, with the exception of the brother in prison, the remaining of his family has been killed in Mexico when they were in holiday. And we follow many perspectives trying to uncover the truth behind what really happened. The point of view include the three members of the murdered family, from a week from the incident to the murdered time. And we also follow, of course, Matt and the FBI agent trying to find out what really happened to the family. Those timelines do alternate between past and the present. I quite liked this thriller. And I thought the inclusion of the murdered characters in the past timeline was a very clever idea as an author, because as the readers, we cared about those characters, of course. And when the time of the murder came by, I actually teared up in those scenes. Characters were all very complex and three-dimensional, including the antagonist of the story. And the mystery was quite decent and constructed very solidly. Maybe that's why this thriller did not have a shocking twist. But this did not diminish the fact that I very much enjoyed this thriller. And I gave Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay an 8 out of 10. Today is the 27th of January, and I finished the book that I was reading for Books of Alfred Hitchcock project, which was To Catch a Thief by David Dodge. This book was adapted into the movie with the same title, To Catch a Thief. In this book, John Rabih, who has been a legendary thief called LeChat, famous for being able to swipe anything and get away clean. But after World War II and fighting with the Nazis, he decides to retire and live a quiet life in France. But a series of robberies do occur in the country, who's mimicking the style of LeChat. John Rabih decides to catch the true thief. And in that process, he meets a very mysterious young woman who decides to help him, even though she knows he is a former thief. I found this book to be very, very entertaining and also quite fast-paced for its time. And I like the idea of a former thief being the most likely person to catch an existing thief. Also, quite like the writing style. It was very, very easy to understand the book. I was not a big fan of the ending, but it actually makes sense when you think about it. Today is the 30th of January and I finished one book today. Before that book, I want to talk about a short story that I finished 2 days before, which was The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. I read this for Nevermore Readathon, which was hosted by Cat, and I actually read it after the readathon ended because I remembered the dates totally wrong. In this short story, a man who's very fond of animals becomes addicted to alcohol, and his behavior completely changes both towards the black cat in the house as well as his wife. Though I was late to the game, I'm very glad that I've read this short story because it was quite an impressive one, very spooky, and quite a good story of psychological decay. I gave The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe an 8 out of 10. The book that I finished was An Unnecessary Woman by Rabih Alameddine. I picked this book from my TBR Wets cup, and it was actually a project book that I couldn't read, coming from 2022. Favorite book from a booktuber, and this was one of the favorite books of Shelly's. In this book we followed a widowed woman who's older than 70 and living in Beirut. She's a very well educated woman and also knows English and French quite well, and in her spare time she translates books from their English and French editions. This book is written in a stream of conscious method, and while we are following Alia's thoughts, we learn much more about her past, her relationship with her family, and also her fascination with her 3 neighbors. This book was quite a powerful book, and it deals with so many issues quite efficiently, I think. We learn about the history of ongoing wars in the area with Israel and also with Palestine, and how it affected both the society, the city, and of course our heroine Alia. And we learn about how being raised by a mother who does not love her enough, and also a stepfather who actually does not care about her, affects her whole life, and her search for love and belonging affected me the most. The characters in the book, especially our heroine, were 3-dimensional and quite complex, which made them quite realistic. Although I quite liked the book and gave it 8 out of 10, I would have given this book a much higher rating if it was not written in a stream of conscious method. This is a method that I find quite hard to adapt, and maybe that's why it took a bit of time to get into the book. And I have to say I was a bit overwhelmed by all of the name dropping of the authors. It made the book quite hard to read at times. Overall, like I said before, it is a very, very powerful book, and I gave An Unnecessary Woman by Rabih Alameddine an 8 out of 10. Today is the 31st of January, and late yesterday night I finished the audiobook that I was listening for 5 days, which was also the last book in the House Trilogy, The House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne. In this book, we follow Calcier, who's a book lover and has been sent to her great uncle, a quite efficient wizard, to take care of his house. When she goes there, she sees that the wizard is ill and she has to live in his magical house by herself while he's away. And during that time, she meets a dog who adores her. Also, another boy who's sent to be the magician's assistant. As they try to cohabit together, our heroine gets a job as the assistant librarian of the king, and there she encounters magical beings, both very good and also evil. I very much enjoyed the first book in the series, The House Moving Castle. And I found the second book not quite as good, but I also enjoyed listening to that book. I did not feel bored with this book. It was also great to see the characters from the previous books appear. But while I was listening to the book, I felt like something new came with each chapter, and this made me feel like author made up some things as the story went on. I have to admit, I really do not like such books or TV series. So as a summary, I gave The House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne a 6 out of 10, and I'm glad that I finished one more series from a vast list of my ongoing series. As for Turkish word of the day, I'm going to choose chess. Chess means satranç in Turkish, and satranç is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.